Okay, good evening, everyone, and I welcome you who have joined us today on the Airmeet platform for yet another fantastic session of the LIT series. Now, if any one of you is wondering what is LIT, well, this is yet another outreach program by the ABG to showcase the world of opportunities that lies within the organization. Interestingly, LIT is in fact an acronym for Leading, Inspiring, and Thought Provoking. It is a knowledge sharing platform where we bring to you our leaders from within the Aditya Birla Group and discuss contemporary topics in a talk show format. The sessions are organized once in every 2 weeks and consists of a variety of themes that is relevant in the industry. So, on that note, our topic for today is Industry 4.0 in the post COVID era. We are going to deliberate and discuss a lot upon whether or not the pandemic has simply accelerated the inevitable. Now let's get started with a round of introductions. My name is Piyush Rath and I will be your moderator for this session. Uh, I've done my mechanical engineering and also hold an MBA degree from IIM Bangalore. At IIMB, I was the elected president of the Student Council and I'm humbled to have made impactful reforms aiming towards the betterment of the community. I'm also an enthusiast in electric vehicles and have been exploring this field for the last 8 years. I must say it's a very interesting and an upcoming field, both globally as well as for India. Now, after graduating from IIMB, I joined the much coveted Aditya Birla Group leadership programs through campus hiring. This program, which we also call it as ABGLP, was launched in 1996 with the vision to nurture and build an internal pipeline of versatile next generation leaders to take on larger roles across the varied businesses of the group. Along with me, I have today Mr. Mahantesh Rampur, who would also be co-moderating this session. Mahantesh is an electronics and communication engineer and holds an MBA degree from the Canadian University of Dubai. He also has certifications on business strategy and artificial intelligence from IIM Ahmedabad, Wharton, and MIT. Mahantesh began his professional career in 1995 with ABG in its cement business Ultratech. Soon after, he decided to explore opportunities in the Middle East and have spent almost 2.5 decades in Dubai and Abu Dhabi working on mega greenfield projects on alumina refinery and aluminium manufacturing. Mahantesh then moved back just a year ago to India to join ABG, but this time under the premium and exclusive Global Manufacturing Leadership Program, also called as GMLP. This program has a singular objective to recruit and develop high caliber manufacturing professionals at the middle and senior level management roles and provide them with opportunities to take on leadership positions across the manufacturing businesses of the group. So welcome Mahatesh and over to you now for introducing our esteemed panel members for the discussion today.
Thank you, Piyush. It was a great introduction. Thank you so much. I'm very impressed with the young leadership like you in ABG. And now I welcome our very own and esteemed panelist and a great leader, Mr. Ashish Dwivedi. He is currently the CEO of Birla White. Prior to this, he was president of Specialty Chemicals and business strategy for chemicals, fertilizer, and insulators (CFI) sector of the ABG. He drove business strategy, new businesses, innovation, R&D, and business communication, and built a downstream specialty chemicals business across multiple products. He was as well responsible for upstream salt business. Mr. Ashish, as I just introduced, has published a technical paper in application of AI in process industry and in advanced process control techniques using neural networks. He has been with our group for over 20 years and has served in multiple corporate roles across business sectors. He has been an integral part of several strategic initiatives, including M&As, restructurings, and corporate initiatives. He is a chemical engineer and holds an MBA. Welcome to you, sir, for this great occasion, and I'm glad to introduce you. Over to Piyush. Please continue the next proceedings.
Thank you, Matesh. Now, before we proceed further, I would like the audience to keep note of the chat box feature where you can post your thoughts, comments, and also questions to the panel member. We'll pick a few questions for discussion towards the end of the session. However, due to paucity of time, we will only select those questions which receive the most likes or votes. Hence, I request the audience to like or vote the questions which they find valuable and relevant. Okay, now before we get started with the discussion with the panel members, just let's have a quick recap of what is this revolution we're talking about after all, right? Industrial Revolution 1.0 to 4.0, what a journey it has been indeed. Now, this entire journey began towards the end of the 18th century when mankind decided to move on from man made manufacturing processes to mechanized production. Do you remember steam engines? Yes, that is what we're talking about, Industry 1.0. And then, after almost a century later, towards the end of the 19th century, what we saw was about mass production. That is Industry 2.0. Now, 1970s was the era when automation started to feed in, basically IT and electronics, and that is what we call the era of I 3.0. And today, what we are witnessing is a wave of Industry Revolution 4.0. It is nothing but connectivity, smart technologies, cloud computing, big data, network machines and processes, and so on and so forth. So, this is what is basically the context of our discussion today. Now, my opening question to Ashish would be that how is I 4.0 more than just a buzzword within the group?
Okay, so Piyush, thanks for bringing this question. Let me actually simplify for the audience because I see Industry 4.0 in a slightly different perspective, a little modified version. Actually, I see this is the second age of what is called the Industrial Revolution. In fact, the first Industrial Revolution, and this is for audience to understand it slightly differently, as somebody has pointed out. Uh, First Industrial Revolution was really through artificial power. In fact, it came after the Agricultural Revolution, where everything in the Agricultural Revolution was based on human power. And the next Industrial Revolution, and that's been the era that we have seen over last many decades, where power came and machines came, and then power started doing things that humans were doing. So imagine the muscle power really taking a role taken up by the machines. So while we call it Industry 4.0, in real sense, in a larger perspective, it's actually the second large significant industrial revolution, because
Absolutely.
now instead of artificial power, we are using artificial intelligence, and that makes the machines look very differently. Imagine again, over all these decades, centuries in fact, what was done to productivity levels because of this artificial power, as I call it, power in the machines and using machines to deliver what we did. So at Aditya Birla Group, we are using, in fact, artificial intelligence to think about productivity. That's my perspective when I look at how at Aditya Birla Group, we are looking at artificial intelligence. In fact, to us, it's a driver of the next change in productivity levels. It's the driver which is going to significantly change because, mind you, we have witnessed productivity leaps in the history of mankind, and we were used to our mindsets, our books, our training, our engineering was used to delivering a 5, 10, 15, 20% productivities. We are now ready to witness a 50%, maybe 100% kind of productivity leaps. I call this, that's why, an industry revolution. The reason this is an industrial revolution is because be prepared to deliver far more significant levels of productivity enhancement. Just to cite a few examples on how at ABG we are doing a few things. Of course, group saw this coming several years back. We not only talked about it, we in fact put our teams, dedicated teams, which brought in this kind of a capability to the organization. We set up a group DNA team, digital analytics team, that really set up the whole setup, whole piece in motion across our group businesses. What is the group doing in some of these? Really, there is multiple approaches. We are using technologies of making digital twins. We are making predictive analytics. We are using centralized historians. We are using advanced analytics. We are using machine learning based prediction models across the group. So what might seem like things which were talked as buzzwords, we are actually using it in our hardcore manufacturing businesses today as we speak. What are we using these for?
So, Mr. Ashish, if I can interrupt you and ask a question, like, so we are not going just because others are going. We are really leading this business.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In fact, there are several global industry firsts that we are attempting in our group businesses, which are not done in these kind of industries at all. Right? So clearly, it is not because it is something that was required. Of course, what Piyush had asked, clearly COVID only accelerates this, right?
Yeah.
However, these are things to do with process and energy. We are looking at areas on asset reliability. We are looking at quality enhancements. We are looking at all yield improvements. We are looking at variety of IoTs. Interestingly, there are very good results coming in things like augmented reality based simulations. We are looking at dynamic optimization today using these techniques. Importantly, we have our own developed system now, which the group will hopefully also market it outside for safety enhancement. And we actually use that tool for COVID safety. So while it was used for plant safety, we in fact converted that tool for COVID safety, where
I
social
remember,
distancing within the plant.
yeah, I remember here when I joined ABG at my unit, they used AI for POC project.
Yeah,
For the during COVID and for safety purposes, if somebody unhooks the safety harness, then the camera detects and it immediately alerts the person to caution him.
exactly.
So, in fact, what you brought up about the group digital and analytics team, I think that is definitely a way forward for any organization to rethink about this entire I 4.0. So, we are actually curious to know a bit more about what are the scale of benefits that we're looking at I 4.0.
Yeah, so it's a very important question that you ask, Piyush. Let me first actually quote somebody.
Sure, sir.
In fact, we as humans tend to overestimate the impact of the changes of technology in the short term, but in the long term, we underestimate them. And clearly, that's something that's happening uh, like it is happening for elsewhere, it's happening for us as well. Like I mentioned, productivity enhancements, we are going to witness not 2%, not 5%. I think that era is through AI and the machine learning systems is getting over. I think we will witness far more productivity enhancements.
Ashish, I mean,
Okay.
it's really great. I'm very impressed with your sound knowledge on this field. So for me, it's a great learning, because it's emerging field. So what do you think as leaders we should, I mean, which tools and technologies we should use if we want to get into Industry 4.0 at our units?
Mantosh, I think this is a very important question in a slightly different perspective. So let me first address it from management point of view. Some of us would recall several years back uh, when there was a shift happening of engineers to do software in India.
Yeah, I remember.
Several people, the purists, as I call them, used to say, "What are you
Yes.
doing? You are a mechanical engineer and you are doing software. You are a chemical engineer and you are doing some software."
That's true. Yeah.
Today, on public platforms, in chemical engineering platforms, I have urged chemical engineers to learn software. The reason is simple. I think some of the tools and techniques are going to become so commonplace. When you hear around us 6-year kid learning programming, I think it is important for everybody who's at the plant, at manufacturing, to know about these tools and techniques that are getting used. To cite a few, I think we talk of analytics in a very common sense. If
Yeah.
technical and manufacturing people had read this coming, there was a data point some years back. I must quote that data point. Industry data is growing at 3x, 3 times the rate of other data. So when we look at data generated at YouTube, at Facebook, etc.,
Yeah.
actually the data we generate in industry is growing at 3 times the rate.
That's
World
true.
has already started capturing industrial data in a very big way, and we are learning to capitalize on that data significantly. So few tools clearly are analytical tools because of handling lot of data is required. Several of the machine learning tools are becoming useful. Small little sensors are becoming commonplace now, right? There are sensors all over,
Yeah.
and this is going to only get accelerated once the mobile telephone is going to adopt the 5G model. So
Yeah.
as 5G technology comes, these sensors will start becoming more and more. So several of the techniques on predictive analytics, on machine learning tools, on the IoT availability, and the tools thereof will start becoming important. One more important thing is the modeling and simulation techniques that need to be learned by everybody, because your ability to really take some of these tools and run with them will become critical going in future.
Yeah, yesterday myself and Piyush, when we were discussing on this, we said after COVID, everybody is going digital. They want to run the business digitally, connect to the customers digitally, serve the customers digitally. So I think it's becoming a bread and butter for us now. We need to learn software, as you said.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is quite fascinating to think about all these sorts of the tools that is required, everything that we want to do to embrace I 4.0. But I still feel that somewhere the basic question that almost every one of us kind of maybe does not take into consideration is the fact that what does an organization of the size of Aditya Birla Group do? I mean, do we kind of consider developing an in-house capability of the necessary infrastructure, or should we actually rely on the services offered by the experts in the field?
So, Piyush, good time. Perfect question. We have got our colleague who had technical issues. He has just joined in. Should you just welcome him and ask this question to
Yes.
him?
Sure, sure. I would like to welcome Mr. Krishna Kumar. Hello, sir. Welcome. Welcome
Hi,
to the panel.
thanks for your patience with
So, for the benefit of audience, I would like to introduce you.
yeah, sure.
Mr. Krishna Kumar is a very remarkable leader in the aluminium business, at ABG. He prides himself on being an ABGite, having his association with Hindalco since 1998, from very early stage of his career. Having worked in multiple functions across 4 units of Hindalco, he now heads the SBU, which prides on touching lives of millions through its services. He is a proud alumnus of NIT Raipur. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the talk show.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether I am visible, but let's continue.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, but you're not visible. So, for your benefit, we will just quickly say at what stage of the discussion we are in. We have got a brief introduction about what Industry IE 4.0 is all about and what ABG is doing at this point of time in this context. So, the question I was just about to ask Ashish, which I think would be more appropriate right now to ask to you, would be so, looking at all the capabilities that we just spoke about of developing or trying to embrace IE 4.0, what do you think is the right approach to go about it? Do we kind of start building our own capabilities in-house framework and everything, or do we strictly rely on the services of the experts of this field?
Okay, very good question, and I think this has been thought about by many organizations. At Hindalco and at ABG, what we have understood is two methodologies. Number one is adopt from the open market whatever is accessible, the tools that are accessible for quick implementation, and in the process train your own engineers to take those projects, scale up those projects across the organization. So two-prong approach. One is adopt from the open market whatever we need to do, and secondly train and train our engineers to scale it up. At Hindalco, what we have done is formed a model of what is known as digital ambassadors. So at every factory and at every function, we have identified a few engineers who can understand in the first place when the tool is being implemented, and the tool may be on blockchain, the tool may be on digital twins, the tool may be even in demand forecasting, the tool may be in identifying the best optimized cost factor for our road and rail transport. And as the tools are getting implemented, learn it and scale it up through into other parts of the organization.
Okay. Yeah, it's wonderful really to hear how ABG is leading this new technologies.
Yeah.
So I'm really wondering now, like we all as leaders at units need to get abreast to this knowledge.
Mhm.
And as Mr. Ashish said, we need to learn software now. So so yeah, we will start learning now. I'm hearing in the market Python. We need to learn big data, cloud, analytics. Oh, so many things to learn. Yeah. So my next question to Mr. Krishna Kumar would be like,
Bharti, one of the challenges and one of the barriers is to identify that there is a data deluge, and from the deluge identify what is important for the business. For some businesses, especially manufacturing, the important thing could be quality improvement, the important could be employee safety, the important factor could be energy optimization. So at Hindalco, what we have done very diligently is prepare first a roadmap and identify where we want to implement which tool for maximizing the benefit for the organization. It's not that you randomly adopt any tool just because it's available in the market, right? For example, productivity improvement at Hindalco is a key driver of cost. What we have done is we have identified which are those activities which serve well for robotic process automation. Now, these activities typically are those in which I call swivel chair activities, that is moving data from one platform to another platform. Activities which are done repeatedly through the day or time period, an activity wherein there is not much controls involved. Identify such activities. We are doing that in our finance function, we are doing that in our marketing function, and trying to utilize this tool called robotic process automation to deliver manpower productivity and utilize the man hours towards serving the customer rather than serving the internal processes. So while you rightly said that there is so much to learn, but it's not that everyone has to learn everything. So pick and choose what's relevant for your role, for what's relevant for your business. And for that, we started with a process we call as digital immersion. I remember this is about 2 years back that our chief digital officer took the top executives of the company to Bangalore, and we went through various organizations which were trying to give us solutions. We looked at what all is there in the open forum and picked and chose what we wanted to implement. For example, in some units, the data acquisition system itself was not perfect. So one had different platforms from which sometimes it was a decision control system, sometimes it was some server, sometimes it was manual entries. So the first step was not actually jump onto some tool. The first step was to make sure that everything is available on one platform. And when you have that platform and the data is real time, the data is online, now we have started to put analytics engines on top of that. Analytics engines which improve the quality, analytics engines which reduce the process rejections, analytics engines which help us to identify what's really required for the customer and tune our processes for that. So that's my humble submission is, let's not get bogged down by whatever is available in the market. Focus on what we require to do and then build, first pick up from the market and then build our own internal data scientists for implementing those across the organization.
Yeah,
This similar thoughts, I just have a submission as well. So what I feel is sometimes it is also important that if we see the volume and the depth of our organization, I think as you rightly pointed out, sometimes the barrier is not the willingness of the organization, but the legacy systems that is there in place. So I'm just wondering out and thinking out aloud, while from an organizational perspective we decide to go and embrace I 4.0, so what about the human behavior part of it? I mean, is there a challenge that we also see sometimes that we need to convince not only the people at the corporate offices but also people from the manufacturing plants to follow a new conventional method of, let us say, data entry, data capture, or something of that sort? How do we sir, kind of uh, come across these challenges?
Yeah, very right, Piyush. And for that, one must understand what is data serving to a particular role. Let's say a technician. Let's compare the role of a technician and how does data serve him with respect to role of a line engineer or for that of a manager. These are all three different needs, right? The role of the technician, for example, and what we have tried to implement at Hindalco is to help him to understand the process without he being continuously looking at the process, is to help him with real time machine speaking to the operator through let's say an SMS. For example, if there is a set process range in which the process is supposed to operate. For example, if there is a continuous casting process and the temperature that is supposed to be maintained is 695 degrees centigrade to 705 degrees centigrade. So the technician is most helped when the trend is increasing from let's say 701 to 702 to 703, and he is able to get the message from the machine itself and is able to prevent it to go beyond the 705 target that he has set for himself. Whereas for an engineer, it would most likely be the real time and the historical data analytics, is to understand the trends of the various parameters and understand at what circumstances does the parameter lead to a deviation in the process, lead to a rejected material, lead to a equipment shutdown. So his need is different, right? Similarly, if you look at a manager or a senior management who is more interested in future developments, is some of the times we use the best case scenarios that the analytics have identified, that these are the best ranges in which the processes seem to give the best results. And therefore, what is required to keep those best case scenarios at all times is the outlook of the manager. So you are rightly said that when there is so much of things that are available on a palm top or a desktop, it's important to understand what is the need for that position, be it a technician or a line engineer or a manager, and therefore serve to him or her what is required by him or her.
Thank you,
Hope,
sir.
yeah.
Sir, actually, I was fascinated to ask one more question to you.
Mhm.
Like I have seen robots, in one of our casting lines.
Yes,
The robots were used to remove the ingots from the conveyor and then stack them and
yes,
bundle them. And then directly after bundling, it used to get onto the trailer and then gets transported.
that's right.
So all these technologies readily available, or should we develop by ourselves?
So there is a mix again. For example, in our line process at Belgavi unit, we require to collect sample at regular frequencies. So we have just opted for an auto sampling device which is available in the market. However, if I were to do this, replicate the same for a packing line, I would have to customize. I would have had to tell the equipment supplier or the original equipment manufacturer what exactly I require it for. So it's a mix of what is readily available and how you customize for your own need. For
Thank
example, let's
Yeah,
say in inventory management, we have had extensive usage of drones for identifying the inventories of thousands and thousands of tons of, let's say, a raw material called bauxite or coal, right? Now, in open air, it's very easy to do that. It picks up the coordinates and does a volumetric analysis and easily gives you the volume. But if it is in a closed environment, so we have to fine tune, we have to customize it in order to get the best results. So it's a mix of what's readily available and what you have to customize. And the beauty is is that you learn a lot in the customization process.
definitely, sir. Sir, one of my question to Ashish is what I have seen some of our colleagues in other industries, they are scared of putting the data to the outside world. They are still thinking that there is a risk to the plant and security of process. So what do you think, sir? Should we go to industry 4.0 with such risks?
So, first of all, as technology evolves, these risks will continue to come down because as technology evolves, if the risk comes, the solutions for that risk will also come. The real question to ask for us at the industry is, do we have a choice of not adopting? I think the answer is obvious. I think slowly but surely, adoption of some of these techniques will have to continue in the industry. And if that has to happen, the solutions will also keep coming. So while journalistically, lot of people do say that there are huge risks with machines talking to each other, things will go little out of the way, etc. But mind you, let's also have a strong faith on the human ingenuity because we will continue to find solutions for those as well. It was a similar thing when banks started becoming digital a decade back, right? Even today, some people still fear transacting over the internet on money, right? But look at the data. How much is the money getting transacted? I think
Definitely.
it is going to be a similar thing where as technology evolves, the adoption will continue to get better and these risks will continue to get mitigated because there will be solutions that will keep coming for these as well. So while the risk is not misplaced, I think it's a right thought if because there is a perceived risk of data getting either out I somehow always take a historical perspective on this. When power lines were put up in US, what we today see in some places in India, just put a small thing and have power theft. It started becoming thing of the past. There are still pockets here or there, but that's about it. So I think ubiquity will ensure that this will start becoming more and more commonplace.
Now, as an analogy, I remember during my younger days, even mobiles, people were afraid to carry. They said a lot of radiation, this and that. But now, mobile has become a necessity in everybody's palm. So yeah, I think so. So industry 4.0 technologies will evolve, and this journey, as Mr. Krishna Kumar said, it's a necessity now that we need to anyway go ahead and then get the benefits out of it.
But again, what I also feel is we have a very important topic which kind of always is the attention for everyone, the stakeholders, the organizations itself, the humankind, and that is about sustainability. So we're just kind of wondering that what does Industry 4.0 has to offer to sustainability? In fact, for a group like us, which is primarily based on manufacturing. So could you just give us a very nice glimpse about the sustainability angle altogether?
Yeah, Piyush, I can take this. Sustainability, let's split into two aspects. One is the organizational sustainability uh, because of the environment and economic model. The other,
Your voice is little low. If you can
okay.
bring it
So
up.
I'll probably take this question. Is let's look at sustainability in two aspects. One is the organizational sustainability due to the environment and compliance norms, regulations that are coming up. And the second is the people safety aspects. In people safety aspects, we have done a beautiful job in ABG is usage of advanced analytics through video, through image, and through audio monitoring in order to provide a safer workplace. There is a in-house developed tool by the group data analytics team called Veda, which is video enabled data analytics, which helps the line managers, the engineers to identify unsafe conditions and take actions on that. It helps the people to adopt safer practices. We have also utilized in the current times, we cannot ignore the aspect of people safety, and we have utilized facial recognition as a tool for preventing touch at the workplace. Earlier, if a workman would come into the shop floor or an engineer comes into the shop floor, he would have had to do a biometric punching. Today, we are using facial recognition tools, and all of it is through a in-house developed software for video and image and audio recognition. On the environment side, we extensively use tools like digital twins for optimizing the performances of our power plants and smelters. This is something which we are absolutely proud about, is how we have been able to reduce the specific power consumption in our smelters through usage of tools like digital twins. We use advanced process controls to prevent the processes going out of deviations and therefore improve the success rate and therefore improve the cost efficiency of the organization. So these are the ways in which sustainability has been addressed using Industry 4.0, using Internet of Things at our shop floor and workplace. And not just for us, but also in our various suppliers. For example, we have extensively used GPRS systems in transportation of bulk materials such as cement. In our cement factories, for example, you will find that the truck driver doesn't need to get out of the truck. There is no need for him to come down and therefore reduces the risk of crush injuries when there is massive movements of hundreds of vehicles in a shift through usage of Internet of Things.
So just when coming to so many solutions available in the market, so how to go about it? Because does it require a lot of budget, or can we do it? Because that question comes always in mind there. How much I have to invest?
It does. So obviously, a lot of things are technology oriented. A lot of things develop and get refined over a period of time, and there are a lot of efforts across the supplier industries, supplier of these technologies. So there is going to be a cost. However, if you are able to identify what is the driver of cost, let's say if quality is the driver of cost in an organization, and we require a higher first time right. First time right means whatever you intend to produce, you produce it as and when you want. And if you are able to put a number to first time right, and put a cost to the rejections, we will find that over a period of time, it may not be in the first year of implementation of a tool, but over a period of time, it helps us to reduce, and it actually is a cost beneficial initiative rather than a high cost. So you have to look at, in general, when we look at anything, we look at a life cycle cost, right? So same with digital tools as well. Why should
So
it be different?
yeah, so we need to see how much we can recover as well,
That's right.
not the investment, but how much we are going to get back.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Considering
So
that these are the tools of future, considering that this is going to happen, so better understand and use it suitably.
thank you. So one question just coming to my mind is to Mr. Ashish. Now we want to drive a paperless, work culture. So what do you think we should quickly we can do, or whatever is available? What technology is available in the market for this kind of thing?
So, paperless, first of all, is not happening because of lack of technology. Technologies, in fact, are available. I think it is just the way adoption happens. Let me cite an example. In Birla White, because of COVID, we created paperless working for the trucks coming in and going out. Okay, because we needed no surfaces, no touch points, etc., and the plants had to go. So we ensured that there is a paperless working for a truck coming in and going out.
Yeah, it's a great example of acceleration.
Probably pre-COVID, it would have taken a lot of convincing, right, for adoption of paperless.
That's true. Yeah.
But during COVID, this just became a necessity, and it got adopted very easily. Right. So things like these, I think technologies in the market today, because of now old ERP systems integrated with workflow systems, etc., except for regulatory requirements, you actually don't need paper. And mind you, in India, government has shown that in fact their adoption of paperless work is very good. They are adopting it far ahead. There are many departments now that don't, they actually do everything online. Are organizations responding to that equally? I think is the question. So technology is a given now on making things paperless.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great insight.
So, sir, is it good to say that the future seems really bright? I know whenever there is a technology leap, it is bound to say people's, saying that, okay, the future is bright, the future is good. So, what, according to you, does it seem like probably 5 years from now, how it is going to help us reimagine the world? Could you just give us a glimpse of it?
Okay, so this is a question tough to say it in a few minutes, but let me attempt.
I agree.
Let me attempt it by first saying, if 10 years back or 15 years back, if somebody had told you that you would start using supercomputers in your hand, would you have believed it? Today, all of us are using supercomputer in our hands, right? The power capability that a hand phone today has is more than supercomputers of not too long back, right? So if that tells you about how technology is moving, I think that is an important one. There is hopefully a new form of Moore's law that will come because of AI ML in the world, because we are going to see acceleration when several of these technologies all converge together. Because that convergence, mind you, is happening very rapidly. With 5G coming in, the enablement goes only better, right? So when I look 5 years from now, I think there will be, and here there are realms of possibility. If I can state that. Imagine our final finished goods talking to in quality terms, talking to the customer end, the recipient of that material. His machine is ready to accept already because it knows what is coming, what quality is coming. So when machines start talking to each other, the ways of how we look at management is going to change. And the winners will be the ones who are going to start these adoptions far faster. There is another way to think about it. I'm reminded of a time, if most of us will remember, music once upon a time was a physical thing. So there used to be music, and you will play a music only using instruments, and then you started doing concerts, and then technology came to start recording the music. Correct? We also music getting recorded.
It
That
used to be live. It used to be only live.
Yes. So then you started getting to go to record shop to buy a cassette or a CD as things progressed. Today, we already only download music. Imagine a time uh, from digital music. What if fashion, which is today a very physical thing, and we as a group are into fashion garments? Imagine a time when you can actually download something which is fashion garment. Is that far? The answer is no.
It's very exciting.
So clearly, there are things that within the 5 years time frame we are going to see, and AI ML is going to have convergence happening with multiple other technologies, and that will only accelerate on what we are able to deliver in future far faster and far better. So in fact, the most impactful thing, again, Piyush, to the question you asked on sustainable, green, etc. I think the most fundamental change, because of design coming together with these technologies, fundamental change in design, industrial design, we are going to design our machines differently. And that is going to deliver something which is 100% sustainable. We are going to deliver something that is 100% green. And that, I think, are the changes that we are going to witness very soon.
So, in
So,
fact, we have a couple of very, very exciting questions from the audience. Now,
just
we know that,
Yes,
yes,
before that, I was very curious to ask one question. So
okay.
what I understood is like the technology developers are ahead; they are going very fast, and the adopters are adopters are lagging behind. So they need to fast pace the adoption.
Uh, I would say, very tough to say one is ahead. Of course, technology development has to be ahead, no doubt about it. But I think a lot of it is needs driven, and adoption is happening in
Sure.
large industries. It's happening in the startups. It's happening in lot of arenas there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just remember like see if we have connected cars, then they say that it's a zero accident on the roads. So I'm waiting to see that happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So insurance
Piyush,
industry, by the way, is already preparing to have
yeah,
far lesser insurance cost if your car is not human driven. Okay.
okay.
So there are changes that are coming in.
Sorry, Piyush, you can go ahead.
No problem, no problem. So we would like to take a few questions from the audience that we have already taken in the form of comments. So this question is to KK. Aditya Malhotra, who is a student of KJ Somaiya, and also Arijit from IIM Indore from the EPGP program, they somehow have the same question. What they are asking is for India to be successful in Industry 4.0, a lot of technologies need to be adopted from foreign companies. Now, does the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat make us slow in this, or what is going to be the impact? Your thoughts, KK, on this?
Well, a lot of technology is software, right? And India is a software.
Yes.
And if you go to any software park of Bangalore, you will find that already we are doing some things and delivering to the world. It's just a question of we adopting it from our own backyard. So Atmanirbhar Bharat is only going to make it accelerated, which is perhaps the theme of today's program.
No, great,
Sure.
great to know that. Great to know that technologies are happening here, but we have to you adopt internally.
That's right.
Great question, Piyush. Yeah.
So I must thank the audience for this.
Yeah.
And one more interesting question. This is more about the education sector of India. Now, this question is more about asking us as an organization what role we would be playing in shaping the education part of it, where, let's say, in an engineering course, perhaps few of the courses may not be as relevant in the time to come as courses like AI and ML. So, probably, what would be our role as the Aditya Birla Group in shaping and giving direction to those course in engineering as well as any program in the country?
Ashish, your take?
Okay, while it is education sector question, let me say a few things that we are already doing in training our people on the shop floor.
Yeah.
Because larger education sector, I'm not best qualified to really answer. My answers will be very generic there. But at the factory shop floor, simulation techniques are already helping us to teach our labor, right? We are using models, 3D models, breaking a machine into parts and teaching our employees on the behavior of the machine. Our health insurance team is already training large workforce and its customers on variety of products they have. So across the industry, wherever the group is present, I think we are using a lot of these tools and techniques to create simulations, to create environments, to have the ability to take business decisions on a real-time basis using some of these tools and use them as training as well, right? There is just to add, I think there is an additional thing where our ability now to learn from our recent past and train ourselves is getting even better. So that's, I think, the other thing that's certainly happening.
Yeah, I think necessity and demand uh, is the driver for supply. I'll give you two interesting examples. I was recently speaking to one of our clients in United States, and one of the things that has happened now is earlier we used to fly. Couple of us would perhaps go once in a quarter or once in a year and reach out to them and travel various places. And there is obviously competition. So one of the my clients, he mentioned an interesting subject that you see your competitor is just down the line. It's about half a mile from my factory. But you know what? Earlier they used to call us and they used to tell us what are the developments that are happening. But nowadays they are unable to do. We are unable to go because of fear of COVID. So that's where we identified a very interesting opportunity. Is though we are thousands of miles apart, we are now able to make them see our laboratory, make them see our technical people, and make them interact over tools like virtual realities. Another example, because of the COVID situation, some of our projects were stalled because we could not get the engineers from either Europe or elsewhere. Through usage of technology like RealWear, our engineers could actually wear specs on top of his hard hat and the engineer sitting in Europe could actually see what exactly is happening at the machine site. Why I'm saying this is, once this get more and more adopted, there will be a pull, and once there is a pull, the rest of the ecosystem, whether be it the educational institutions or the students themselves, will have to adapt to meet the demand of the industry or of the ecosystem. So that's how I look at it.
So in fact, if I could add, we at Birla White actually use this education for painters across the country.
Mhm.
And again, in COVID times, it became almost like a good thing because we were able to train the painters on new products. And across the country, there are a large number of painters that underwent a lot of these training programs on how to apply our product.
Hmm.
So, variety of these things actually in education or training is getting used.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a really great. I mean, I'm really as Piyush explained in the beginning, industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So I think there has been a big gap between 3.0 and 4.0 from 90s to we are now in 2020. So I think that I really respect these great panelists. I think you have made the audience very interesting, and I think many will start learning software now. So, so thinking on that, I think there have been many questions from the audience. They look like they are very much interested. They are asking questions like, what skill sets are required to move into Industry 4.0? How you will hire? What skills you will hire at ABG? So there have been so many interesting questions coming up. I think now they are enlightened with the lot of things you have said. So I want to really thank from the bottom of my heart our respected panelists.
Mahantesh, so one of the skills that will be required more than the software or the analytics part is the adaptability. I
And
think those are going to be adaptable, and
yeah,
Charles Darwin said, right? So it remains the same. Adaptability is going to be the key skill. Ability to work in a situation which you have not faced earlier and to develop solutions, and ability to work not just on a single role for years but on multiple projects at the same time with different people. I think these are going to be the skills. Rest can be taught, whether it's blockchain or whether it is virtual reality or whether it is advanced analytics can be taught or bought. But the skills of adaptability, working in with no precedence of experience, and working on a project mode with multiple teams at the same time, I think these are going to be important skills that we all need to, not just the newcomers, even we need to have
yeah.
to be
I
relevant.
think
I almost feel like you read my mind because I think the concluding question would have been to ask for your advice to this wonderful audience as what they should be doing and looking forward to. So thank you so much, KK, for saying this. Ashish, I would want two sentences from you as well. What would be your message to the audience who have been amazing, very, very interactive with us, but not really as a CEO, not as someone who is leading a business, just as a professional? What would be your message to them?
Uh, you know, uh, the era that we are all facing into, it's a significant opportunity, especially for the youngsters, to start making a difference to the society we live in. And these techniques that are now coming in, the new technologies, are only getting things a lot better. So go out and seize the opportunity is what I would say.
Perfectly summarized. Thanks a lot. It means much more to the audience who is far more eager to join organizations like ABG, and where we have only one goal probably to kind of evolve with every single day. So, with this note,
yes,
I would really like
yeah.
to thank. Yes,
Piyush,
yes, Mandesh, please.
First, I think we need to appreciate our audience really. They have been so
Absolutely.
attentive. Yeah, They have been very curious to ask questions, and they have been asking a lot of questions to our panelists.
Surely, Matesh. So yes, thank you all. Thank you all who have taken out the time to join today. We really look forward to you for having many more of you in the upcoming sessions. Stay tuned to the ABG social media handles on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook to hear about the upcoming lit sessions. Have a great evening. Yeah, and please stay safe. And
Definitely.
thank you everyone for
Thank you
joining.
everyone and stay safe.
Thank you so
Good
much.
evening. Good evening to all.
Good evening.